I'm your host, RiRi. Welcome to Reimagining Life from Pain to Purpose, where you'll find a community focused on resilience and perseverance, sharing untold stories of hope and rebuilding while dealing with major life interruption. This podcast is made by and for people in the process of reimagining their lives. We're here to raise the voices of those who often suffer in silence, living with chronic pain and/or disability. This space is for you. We encourage you to get involved. So stick around and let's jump right into the next episode.
Welcome back to Reimagining Life, Episode 2, Part B. In our previous segment, our founder, RiRi, shared her personal journey of working towards acceptance and finding new purpose. You may recall the steps that RiRi shared with us: appreciating the simple things in life, practicing meditation and mindfulness, keeping her mind and body active, and setting herself up for success. Adopting a mindset of acceptance is not always easy, but it is often necessary in order for us to find a new way forward. So let's hear from RiRi as she continues to share her story of her journey of acceptance and purpose.
Though it's incredibly hard to do, I accept that my work and my other adventures are not things I can do right now. Yes, I miss those parts, but I try to use positive thoughts and look for a mini alternative that I can do and enjoy in the meantime. Unfortunately, since I have a lot of triggers, that's not always possible. As soon as I recognize any red flag signals, I don't force myself to stay in that situation because I know I'll end up feeling worse. My acceptance means I listen to my body when it says, hey, I'm not liking this. I need a quiet place to chill to get over this. And I recognize and accept that this is a system overload situation, and I immediately look for the exits and try to get myself somewhere safer. If further action's required, I'll do any number of things in my toolbox: meditation, relaxation, go to a dark, quiet room, take medication for specific symptoms, have something to eat, sometimes just sleep. If I don't feel better within a few hours, I know I might need to take the rest of the day or maybe several days or even weeks to recover. Despite the best laid plans and all that I've laid out that I try to manage and monitor constantly, which admittedly is exhausting, I'm not always able to protect myself or save myself from feeling worse or just really shitty. So many things are outside my control, like weather, if I've gotten enough good sleep, emergency lights, sounds, maybe there's a fire alarm, just anything. And even sometimes I don't even know what the cause is. But I go into every situation with heavy armor and my toolbox and hope that I can manage the situation. Sometimes not the case, and you just have to deal with it. An incredibly important part of this lesson for me has been the realization that acceptance is not a one-time thing. I continually face or discover new things or challenges that require major reimagining if I want to take part in some way. So I have to think creatively and figure out another way to do it. I often ask myself, why is acceptance so hard? When you have more downtime, you can really sit and analyze your thoughts or overanalyze. I recently found a journal entry that I wrote about this topic a while back, and I think it still has some pieces that are worth sharing. Though I accept where I am right now, I still find myself trying to hide my symptoms. That's where I pick up on this journal entry I'll share right now. So it starts with, I try to hide my pain, inability to think clearly, and low energy. Why? That's what I find myself asking. Perhaps because I don't want to admit that this chronic illness is not something I can beat. Maybe it's because I'm embarrassed that I feel badly so often. Or maybe because I think people just don't understand and tell me to take some Advil and take a quick rest. Also, when people hear the word migraine, they think it's just a bad headache. This is not a bad headache. A migraine is an intense level of pain and also involves all parts of the body: fatigue, dizziness, vertigo, nausea, stomach issues, inability to think clearly, extreme sensitivity to noise, sound, smell, movement. I also don't want to bring other people down or be the reason someone doesn't do something they want to do. So when I have days when I wake up feeling pretty crappy, like today, I feel the weight of all I've been dealing with physically and emotionally for years. I'm a fighter. I do everything and more that doctors, physical therapists, pain management people have told me to do. I'm extremely motivated and driven as a person, but there are days when this illness just kicks my butt and flattens me out. I do believe in mind over matter, but I've learned there are some things you can't think your way out of. Often questions that I cannot answer tend to come up, along with some feelings of hopelessness. I, like many people, like to have control of my body and my future, but this illness does not allow me to be in control many times. As I've learned, when your mind fights your body, you lose. End of story. So, where does that leave me? Trying to, quote, live in the moment and only focus on one day at a time. I've gotten pretty damn good at that, but at some point, you have to feel like you can make plans, even in the short term. On days like this, I might try to go for a walk, but that's incredibly hard because my body just doesn't have the energy and isn't functioning. When my brain is compromised because of migraine, it tells all my systems to go to low functioning. My muscles are tired, my body's tired. It feels like I'm pushing a giant boulder up a steep hill. Right now, I'm sitting here typing on my laptop wearing blinders because I can't look at the computer screen. Will there be lots of typos? Yeah, you bet. Also, it's much harder to write since I can't review what I've already written along the way. But I need some form of expression, and typing for me is much faster than writing. This is an exercise in managing emotions along with the physical. I'm a person who likes to be very active. Anytime I can swim or go for walks, do exercise, I feel traces of the person I used to be. Before becoming disabled, I loved going on trampolines, doing flying trapeze, whitewater rafting, treetop obstacle courses, all that stuff. When my body is physically not up to simple things I want it to do, it's frustrating and upsetting. Being able to physically move and be active is an important part of my life and daily routine. When my body fails, I feel like I've failed. So, despite the amount of training I do, how diligently I push myself to get out and do stuff, I still can't make it go away. This is the story of dealing with chronic pain and its many impacts on life. I'm young. The world and society and everyone around me says I should be out enjoying the prime of my life, starting a family, traveling the world as all my friends are doing. All things I'd love to do, but it's not realistic for me yet. That's the end of the journal entry. And so that's where you can see acceptance coming into play. I can't do that yet. I can accept it's not realistic for me now, but maybe, hopefully, in the future. I've accepted that my current limitations in many ways are there, and I'm okay with it. And I'm okay with saying I'm not up to it. But sometimes, let's be honest, my patience runs out.
Amazing. Is understandable if your patience runs out, Riri, considering everything that you have gone through and are going through. Grace to yourself is very, very important. Your journey has been incredible. Some of the nuggets that you shared in this section, I think it's worth repeating. So the combination of things that gets you to the mindset of acceptance, you said, were as follows: learning to appreciate the simple things in life, lots of meditation and mindfulness practice, keeping your mind and body active, and setting yourself up for success. And I think these are excellent tools for everyone, not just folks who are dealing with chronic physical issues, but in life in general. I think those are very, very important words of wisdom. So thank you for sharing that. Now, along your journey of acceptance, how does this acceptance relate to you finding your new purpose?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, One of my biggest challenges about reimagining my life has been finding new purpose. As I've said, I'm naturally a very driven person who doesn't give up. That's part of my personality, for better and for worse. My previous work and volunteering served as my purpose, but I could no longer do those things I loved. I was trying to find new purpose that takes into account my many limitations, and it was really challenging. So it was especially challenging because I couldn't make any long-term commitments, and I don't have the stability of knowing how I'll feel or what I'll physically be up to all the time. But I thought about what's important to me and how I could somehow turn the years I've spent trying to heal myself into a way to help others. That's when I came up with the idea of reimagining life, turning pain into purpose, the podcast. Through my journey, I've met many people with stories similar to mine. Going through something like this is extremely isolating. I now know that there are many people out there dealing with similar struggles, having to make major changes without a roadmap. If I could share what I've learned over the past years and help others who might be struggling on their own journeys, that would give my years of pain and suffering purpose. I know how isolating, especially having an invisible disability, is. I've been fortunate to have supportive family and friends who have helped me immeasurably, whether researching resources online, looking into trials, navigating the complex medical system, helping track the surmounting medical bills, etc. And I know that others might not have this type of support and are likely feeling totally alone and lost about what to do next. So I wanted to put my knowledge, resources, and compassion out there for others to feel a sense of support in the hopes that they can build on what I can share. I've focused on positive relationships, doing everything I can to take care of my mind, body, and being around people who are supportive. I think everyone needs that. So this podcast and you, the reimagining community, became my purpose. But the more I thought about actually putting my new purpose into action, the more overwhelming it became. The world of podcasting was something I knew nothing about. There are tons of resources out there online, checklists, how to start a podcast, articles and courses, how to re-record, etc., etc. I had help finding resources and printing them, which is not very green, but I couldn't read on the screen. And I began slowly wading through some of them. The more I learned, the more questions I had. All the information was just overwhelming. So I needed to break down each step into tiny pieces and only focus on accomplishing one small goal at a time. I knew it was literally take a village to make this podcast a reality. My disability makes the bar even higher since I can't spend much time on the computer and can only focus for short periods of times on good days. And I would definitely need a lot of research help to do all the behind the scenes work to make this happen. It also required managing expectations, my own as much as others, and not focusing on disappointment. So I began to set micro daily or weekly goals, and little by little got me closer to where I wanted to be.
Amazing, amazing journey to finding your purpose through pain. And I can't wait, Riri, to see the impact of this podcast on so many people. The world is waiting. Thank you for sharing that part of your journey with us. Now, in order to fulfill your purpose, I am sure you've had to build new goals. So tell us a little bit about how you've done that. How have you built new goals?
Sure. So I started brainstorming things to focus on and look forward to. So I can give you an example of one that really helped me. So it was springtime, and I was really looking forward to summer. Summer to me means all the things I love to do: swimming, going to the beach, being outside with longer days, and just a more kind of laid back vibe. As a former competitive swimmer, summer also means swimming laps at the outdoor pool. I used to swim a mile a day, several times a week, no problem. Since my illness, I found myself unable to even look at the water some days because of the movement made me dizzy. And we're talking about in a pool. Waves in the ocean were much worse. So I knew the kind of swimming I used to do was out of the question. And even going into the ocean seemed pretty far away. But I was determined to get back to swimming. So I learned to be mindful and observe very small things. I learned I needed to pick my swim time carefully. There couldn't be too many people in the pool because it created choppiness that I couldn't handle. The same was true for windy days or any time a storm system was coming through. I became a very close follower of weather forecasts. On the calm days when I felt like I could manage the pain, I would set out for the pool. I learned I had to swim with earplugs or the pressure in the water would make me feel worse. I also needed the help of anti-nausea medicine. With all these measures in place, on clear weather days when I wasn't feeling run down, I would start by swimming a few laps. At first, this was a win. Depending on how I felt after a few laps, I started to increase the number of laps a couple times a week. These were baby steps, increasing by 1 or 2 laps. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not, and I had to get out of the pool. Those days were frustrating, but I coped by trying to focus on the positive days. On the days that it worked well, I was so happy. I knew I was starting with a pretty low bar compared to the old me, but I was able to focus on how much I enjoyed the feeling of gliding through the water and channeling my inner dolphin. By the end of the summer, I was up to what felt like a good number of laps a day. I wasn't swimming nearly as fast as I used to, certainly was not doing any flip turns, and was only able to do certain strokes. But I lived for that feeling of being in the pool, the sunshine beaming into the water, and just swimming, feeling traces of my old self. The sense of accomplishment and feeling like my old self was euphoric. The old me was really still in there somewhere. I hadn't seen her or felt her in years. So this was a really powerful, healing feeling, and one that I try to replicate as much as possible. Swimming is an example of a modified goal, building up gradually when my body allowed. It was frustrating, very time consuming, and challenging to stay within my guidelines, but ultimately turned out to be a reimagined success. I have to realize and recognize I still live with high sensitivities to many triggers. The smallest change, which could have no impact on a normal person, can create drastic increases in pain and set me back for days or weeks. So I stay in very controlled environments and I'm very careful about what I do and where I go. I recognize that's way less adventurous. I have to build new, reimagined life that is years in the making that I can be proud of. I had to work towards living the kind of life I was able to do, learn to appreciate the simple pleasures, and strive for other ways to improve myself, help others, and find purpose in this limbo lifestyle.
Amazing. Very, very important tools that you've utilized in modifying the way you normally do things and still being able to enjoy the things that you enjoyed, such as swimming. And that was just one example of how you set your goals and reimagined the way you do things. Now, if you could tell us a little bit more about what was your turning point.
Yeah, it's very difficult for me to accept that I'm not in control, as I've mentioned. I really don't like that my body reacts and responds in ways that I don't want it to do. But I started to realize that that's not different from anyone else. Things happen that are beyond everyone's control, like weather, storms, pandemics, accidents, and we all have to do our best to adjust. So when COVID hit, I realized I'd been living a COVID style life for years. The rest of the world was just trying to keep up with me. So all of a sudden, I was the expert. It was kind of nice that the world started living the way I had already been living. Of course, the reason was frightening and awful. but it made me feel a little bit more normal with others living my type of life. And they got to see how frustrating it can be. So, one thing I'm working on is also trying to let people in and be more open with areas where I need help, and also not associating shame with needing help. That's critical.
Wow. Now, isn't that interesting and quite a turn of events, right? When COVID hit, you could say to folks, well, welcome to my world. It's and I know it's difficult for people sometimes to understand what someone is going through unless they walk in their shoes. So that was one little glimpse that people could have in what you have been dealing with. But again, being able to shift your perspective has been awesome. You mentioned one thing about, needing help, and that is something that is necessary, and it's not a sign of weakness. It reminds me of a quote that I see in Charlie Mackesey's book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And I believe it goes something like this: what is the strongest thing that you've ever done? And the response was, ask for help. Again, quoting Charlie Mackesey, there's a section of the book where the boy said, I have such a long way to go. And the horse responded to the boy, yes, but look how far you have come. And this is what I've said, I'll say to you. Yes, it may seem as if it's a long journey for everybody who's dealing with challenging situations, but sometimes it's just worth reflecting. But look how far you've come. And I so appreciate all these lessons that you're imparting to all of us, not just the folks who are dealing with physical challenges, but challenges in life in general. That's a way to shift perspectives. So thank you so much, Riri. All right, now we're coming to a fun part of the podcast. And this is where we will do some rapid fire questions. So I am going to ask you 5 questions rapidly and answer them as honestly and quickly as possible with whatever comes to mind. Are you ready?
I am.
All
Let's
right,
do
let's go.
it.
What's your favorite sound?
Ooh, I think I have two.
All right.
One is the sound that babies make when they're just sort of not crying, just making like baby noises as they sort of explore things. I love those little sounds. And the other thing, quite different, um, on the tennis court, when there's like a really good match, there's a lot of
Mm.
squeaking of tennis shoes as people are like running side to side and sliding. I love that squeaking noise. It's weird.
Wow. both both great answers. It really just paints that image in your mind of a baby just kind of cooing, I'm here. And
Yeah.
those sounds on the tennis court, whether it's the racket going back and forth or as you said, the tennis shoes. Very, very great answers. All right. Question number 2. What's your favorite word?
Ooh, hmm. That one's harder. Um, I think absolutely. When you ask a question and someone says, absolutely,
Why?
because it means yes, let's do it. I'm
All
in.
right. That's another great response. It gives you that air of confidence that we're going to do this.
Hmm.
What's your favorite guilty pleasure?
Ooh. Hmm. I think cuddling up and watching the latest of my favorite streaming shows,
Mhm.
even though it might be really not that good, but it's just like relaxation and pure pleasure.
That sounds good to me. Awesome. Now, what do you wish people understood?
I wish people understood that A, you never know what's going on behind the scenes of what
Mm,
you see. Um, and B, we're really all the same. Doesn't
mhm,
matter where we come from. We can have different beliefs, but at our core, I believe that most or all people want to live a happy life.
mhm.
And want positive things for themselves and their family.
That is so true. And that is a belief that I also share. At the core of each of us, we have the same need for love and acceptance. That's a profound answer. Rapid question number 5. What advice would you give to an 18-year-old you?
Hmm. I think I would say slow down, have fun, and appreciate the fun and the good stuff. Grades, they'll only get you so far, but living life and enjoying every moment you can, that's going to last longer. And it's going to take you longer than you think to really come into your own and know what it is you want to do and what really you value.
Hmm.
So don't put so much pressure on yourself and, take your time. It's a little cliche, but smell the roses, do all that stuff, because really time goes by quickly and it's such a great period of time in your life. Enjoy it.
Wow. I think that is great advice, not just for 18-year-old you, but for all of us at any age.
That's true. I
Wonderful.
agree.
As we come towards the end of this episode, Riri, any final words that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up?
Um, I think the only thing I would say is that I welcome other people to share their stories. Sharing my story, I'm not a person who likes to be the center of attention.
Mm.
Um, and so sharing my story was a bit daunting, but I think there's real value in hearing what other people are going through and how they've built themselves back up. And I'm hoping that other people can learn from that, and other people in a similar light will be open and willing to share their stories and help create support and growth in our community.
Wonderful. That is awesome. I think some of the things that you have shared with us throughout this podcast episode really resonates with, I think, everybody, because these are really life lessons. Some of the things you shared is about, how we make progress, and, you're going to have good days, you're going to have not so good days, but it's important to be patient with yourself and just let things go according to how your body and how your life is unfolding, being patient, and just let those feelings come out as they will. This is all very sound advice, and as I often say, life is not perfect, so let's value progress over perfection. And Riri, you have shared with us a great deal of wisdom and life lessons from the lens of someone who's walking the talk of a life reimagined. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you and hearing your story. And we look forward to many more impactful episodes as you share stories of others who are living a life reimagined. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to Reimagining Life from Pain to Purpose. We're always interested to hear your feedback and questions. So leave a review and drop us a note at reimagininglifepodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. We hope you'll tune in for the next episode.